let's first start though, do we have to sew? I mean, can't we just glue this shit? Right, I mean, sales,
You can have someone sew it for you, but it's gonna cost you.
I know.
Yeah, I have some broken the windows, you know,
Yeah.
they fail, and it's really easy to just put an old window, a new window over the top, and you sew it on, and then you cut out the old window, takes you half
Nice,
a day,
yeah,
and save you $400.
you know, the, some of the stuff that we fix, especially when you're, out, you can fix just with adhesives, 5,200 or
No,
4,200.
No, not.
Seriously,
Yeah, I've done
I mean,
sales.
sales can be
Won't
fixed that
come
way.
off where you want it to.
So don't
Stay
assume
on.
that you have to sew, okay? And
It's
there
not
are,
made for that.
I mean, they're putting the sales together now with, Ultra Bond guns, which are glue guns essentially. And the seams are supposedly way stronger than sewing. So adhesives continue to get better and better. And I've wondered about, there's some stuff that I would like to make out of neoprene, and I've thought, well, there's gotta be a way to do that. Sewing neoprene sounds like. Um,
Sorry.
and then, you don't have to go for a lot of things, you can hand stitch stuff. And who here has been, has had to fix stuff just hand stitching? Right? Everybody. Do it all the time.
Sewing holes work great.
faster, get it done.
So the handy stitcher, are you referring to the handy stitcher?
Well, I don't know. Is that what it's called?
Same, different
Sewing
brand.
hole.
Yeah, it's a
You
sewing
poke
hole.
it through, you stick it through. Well,
Yeah, exactly. I was amazed how good the sewing hole is, although I have to look it up every single time, and here it is.
Wow.
Thank you, I was gonna bring mine and I forgot it. Can you see me?
Yeah, you might want to come show us on camera. That would be easier.
So,
That's
I
great.
keep taking it on and off, I keep hanging with this.
Hey, I'd like to comment, I'd like to get in for a sec.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the recording is just gonna be showing the multi-hull Burgee up until, because the host apparently is the multi-hull Burgee. So,
It should,
You're gonna
no, it
eat
should be okay if you have it here. You know what I can do? Thank you for bringing that up. Sorry, I'm having an AV problem today.
so here's the sewing hall.
There we go.
thank you.
And that has worked great for me. And also I use just the old school palm and needle. And the trick for me has been in hand sewing has been the thread wrapping and getting in a knot. You pull it through and it turns into.
Here you go, Vince.
There's your
Dan.
Dan.
Coach here.
There's your palm for pushing the needle through.
Wow.
But when you pull the thread through, if you use twisted thread.
Prepared, what can I say?
Yeah, no, this is awesome. But when you pull the thread through, if it's twisted thread, it'll kind of twist and then knot before you can get it all the way through. So if you use a kind of a unidirectional thread or
Braided?
no, not even, well, braided will work better than the twisted thread. But the stuff I got from the sail maker down here, Shadower Sales, is kind of a, no, don't
There you
use
go.
this. This stuff is terrible. Tiger thread, what is this?
That's a wicked.
Let me turn this off. Sorry, guys. Yeah, turn her off.
She's FaceTiming you. She wants to say hi. Didn't care about the news.
Yeah, no, this is not it either. This is what I have is it looks like little individual filaments, like unidirectional carbon, and it's all waxed together. Do you have any of that? But stuff is so great. You'll see it in a lot of corners of sails. That the stitching that they put through the webbing right at the ring, oftentimes will be this unidirectional thread. And it's not thread, it's like
It's like
Almost
string
like-
that's not twisted.
It's like string that's not twisted, several bands of it. And that makes the hand sewing a lot easier, in my opinion.
Kind of my way my laminate sail is eroding into just.
Yeah, you should be able to pull these threads out of your sails and use that for sewing.
Before or after it turns into a mass sale.
Yeah,
Do we have, here in the group, anybody who would like to offer suggestions about kind of this hand sewing and repair situation? Yes, Bill?
I don't have any suggestions, because I'm the absolute worst at this. I just wanna say that that's pig spinnaker, that remains that pig spinnaker. I'm really good at shredding spinnakers, I'm really good at shredded joes. Anybody who wants to sew, and then when we get to sewing, if you wanna take some of that and practice, you can just cut a piece off and,
Was this the one you just,
no, that was the one I destroyed a long time ago.
this is one of your earlier shredded spinnakers, I
Yes,
see,
yeah.
okay.
It's a whole like road of broken tears. But use whatever you want, that's all I want to say.
Bill told me that the spinnaker he got from me, how many years ago?
I don't know, he didn't even remember giving me the spinnaker.
And
That's all
it was,
You had a purple
I want my
spinning?
money back.
no, I did not, this is a different
Oh.
spinnaker that he blew up.
You know, white, boring white.
And it was so worn out that it tore when he just grabbed it, so,
Point loading.
point load, yeah, that was the problem, yes, Dan.
I do a fair amount of canvas and leather work, and, one thing that I find is really handy, and you can get them online, but there's a local shop up on 99 called Tandy Leather. If you've never been there, it's a great resource. They have thread and needles and.
leather?
Tandy. Tandy.
Candy.
Oh,
T-A-N-D.
yeah. They're like
Really?
leather?
Mostly? Mostly leather, but they do have some canvas stuff there. But one tool that I use a lot, and I meant to bring it tonight, I just grabbed some stuff out of my car, but it's basically like a 4-pronged fork. That
Oh,
you
yeah.
hammer into things, and it pre-makes the holes for it to be really easy to stitch through. So
Oh.
if you have like 7-8 layers at the end of a sail or something like that, you can put it over a rubber mat. And you can pound in, you keep the last two from the last two, and you just keep going. And it gives a perfect like 6mm stitch all the way through.
Oh, that's
But you
great.
can buy those also in a zigzag pattern
Ha, no
online.
kidding.
So you can get the full zigzag by hand without having to pierce through the material. Because, I mean, I've broken needles trying to just push them through with the leather palm in the past, but that's my hand sew trick.
So one of the things that I realized is, I was hand sewing and getting just awful looking stuff, and I didn't bring some of my worst stuff. But if you just mark the holes, using a ruler and a little Sharpie, fine point Sharpie in advance, so you plan out your line of stitching, that's made my hand sewing better, than it was.
I do the same when I hand sew like an eye splice. Like a double braid eye splice, not a Dyneema multi-hole splice like everyone here normally does, but. Basically the interlocking, handcuff style splice, and you want that nice stitch in there, so when it's loose, it doesn't back itself out. But drawing that out with a Sharpie right onto it gives you a really nice pattern as you hand stitch that through.
Yeah. What kind of thread are you typically using
Or
for this kind of heavy duty, corner of the sail?
it depends. I try to get like, anything in the Tenera world or Lifetime stuff, I try to use all Lifetime threads.
So this is something we should talk about, which is, the stitching goes, and that's one of your sail, sewing projects is to re-stitch covers. You take your fingernail and you scratch it and the thread just disintegrates. Well, one of the easiest things to do with the sewing machine is just re-stitch that shit. But the Tenera thread I've never used. Tell us about your experience with that.
It's slippery. It's really hard using a sewing machine. I got some tips on how to make it run better through a sewing machine. We get in the sewing machine.
Okay, yeah,
Give you
well,
those
let's,
tips.
yeah, let's talk about that.
Hand sewing, it's sort of the same thing. There's a way in which if we get into hand stitching later, I can show you how to thread a needle and then back itself through. So it's like not really a knot and it's the same thickness all the way through.
Huh,
So you take the needle and you go back through the center of the thread and pull it through, and it creates its own sort of like constrictor knot.
well, we'll have to do that. Let's,
And then a lot of the times I'll use 2 needles on each side of the thread.
huh,
and
So you get the-
chase each other, and you get sort
Oh,
of the
that's
same stitching.
fascinating.
So it's not a lock stitch.
No, it's,
two stitches.
yeah, it's.
It's two stitches that just
off the
pass
same
each other
thread,
and go
yeah,
through the
pass
same
each other,
holes.
through the same holes.
Well, that's fascinating.
I will say that that thread is amazing, because if you, I mean, I've used it to cut off ends of things, you know, with a hot knife. And it'll cut the material and the stitching remains,
Ha,
and it's impervious to chemicals and et cetera. I mean, it'll last very, you know, longer than the material itself. that you're
longer
sewing.
than the fabric.
Yeah.
Have you been using it in your sail ride?
Yeah,
Okay,
It-
we'll
they,
show
the
that.
Sailrite does have some videos that, in fact, they have some newer ones that I think give better advice on how to use it, but.
Yeah.
This one here, if you wanna look at that thread, is made from that thread.
Okay, we will take a quick peek at that.
It's hard to work with.
How do you spell the name of the thread?
Tenera,
Oh, kidding.
No,
T,
T,
Tenera.
Yeah, I think Sailrite now calls their version of it like, it's a, if you search lifetime thread, it'll just show up, but it's GTFE or something.
Lifetime rate or something, but it's
Is it basically NWMA?
No,
It's a high-tech fabric.
I can't remember what it's made from with the three-letter acronym of plastics, but it's.
BTFE.
Yeah,
So the issue with sewing machines is it's slick?
polyfluoroetho something, yeah.
Oh, is that, it's like the, fishing line, the chlorine, whatever it is.
So it's really slippery, and so it's hard.
the issue is that your upper tension on your sewing machine runs through a V.
Yeah.
And the tighter you make that V, it binds against the thread, it has a tendency to just walk itself out.
Oh, squeeze
So
out.
you have to give it a torturous path to keep in that V.
Ah,
You know, we're all used to just using the upper tension, but with that thread, you have to increase the tension on the bobbin.
As well, yeah.
So, you know, there's that little metal
Little screw
curved
like that,
portion,
yeah.
you know, and we're not used to adjusting that, but you can adjust that with the screw that's there. And that's what it takes. You just have to run multiple runs of material through as you adjust it, and then in the end, it's perfect. I mean, I've used it for a lot, and it's not a problem once you set it up right, but it's very different than the other threads that you would
And
use.
you have a normal, sewing machine, or do you have a Sailrite?
I have a Sailrite.
but any reason it wouldn't work in a normal, like, you know,
I don't have any experience on it, but
yeah.
I don't think this, like the older ones, I don't think you can do the bottom tension.
Well, I have an old fast 130 and you can tension
The bottom,
the
the
bottom,
bottom.
yeah.
Yeah,
I got a question back towards hand stitching. So what stitch are you using typically? Like, you talked about, you know, chasing one on each side, I get that. I've always just done down one side, go a little bit, go up the other side, so it's just a zigzag stitch. Obviously, they're probably better, that's just.
that's what I
Made that
done.
up on my own, and that's what seemed to work, but I'm just curious, like, is there a better way to do it?
Yeah.
And what
Yes,
What
okay,
is it
Dan,
faster and easier? That's,
Okay,
like, let's
okay.
get this done. That's,
You want strong, I mean, you want strong and light, right? You want it to last a long time, and you want.
yeah, it's strong.
okay, Dan, what's the answer?
I think two needles is really, it's fast and it's super hella strong, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing one needle through, you go through, and you go underneath, and you go back through that hole, so you're doing a loop, so you get the top line, bottom loop out of that same.
So you
thread.
get a continuous line of
Continuous,
stitching.
you don't do sort of the wave, you just do a continuous loop, and you go through. And then you get fancy with that, and you can knot each loop. So if it breaks at some point, it doesn't, you don't lose the run.
Okay.
But there's tons of different stitches you can throw at it, but.
So this book here, The Sailmaker's Apprentice, is really a great book and beautifully illustrated, and they do have quite a bit on stitching, different stitching techniques. This is available up at, go to Port Townsend. The guy who wrote the book has a little shop in the old sail loft where, right behind Brian Toss, and you get your autographed copy.
wow.
And don't delay, he's not getting any younger.
It's called a Artful Sailor.
Oh, the story, yeah.
Yeah, the story's called The Artful Sailor, yeah. Any other thoughts on, this hand sewing thing?
So you're not, when you're hand sewing, you're not trying to replicate a sewing machine. Yeah, because a sewing
Lock
machine
stitch.
has two threads.
Yeah, that lock in the middle, yeah, and then come back out.
Well, when he talks about two needles,
Yeah.
two needles, it's gonna be two threads.
Yeah,
But that's gonna be
So different.
for that, but not a lock stitch where one
Right.
goes.
Do you use both needles from the same side or do you alternate?
alternate.
Okay.
Did we get that, that acting out?
Yeah, hold on there.
On the video, that was.
We need some music to go with that?
Yeah.
Jess does all the video editing. I'm sorry, this one's gonna be rough.
Whoa, okay. It's, yeah, it's good.
Moving on.
Moving on. Let's talk about sewing machines, and I'd like to start with Jeff. Jeff has an old school. Tell us about this sewing machine, Jeff, and what you've been able to do with it.
I'm not an expert at sewing, but I did rebuild the machine, so. And,
You did?
yeah, I did. Yeah, it was in an accident. It's a family.
What
it's a-
accident?
It was in a car wreck.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, it's like 1938, 42, somewhere in that range, It's a Singer. It's motorized, so it was like, kind of first, second gen motorized thing. Path, I heard you talk about
Yeah,
Path,
one
that's
thirty,
another
which is
kind
sort
of,
of the same genre.
yeah, same genre. So it's just a super heavy duty home sewing machine that was designed to do everything from like ball gowns to dungarees, right? So has pretty strong motor, super strong platform. And it has no problems going through multiple layers of, sunbrella or things like that, so. Like, this machine takes a little bit of maintenance, it has little felt wipers in there that take little drops of oil, it's just like a, 1920s engine kind of. But if you have it tuned up right and the tensions are right, it works pretty good. It's not fancy, it doesn't do a lot of different stitches, but, I've made, sail covers with it, I made, pockets for storage and things like that. My wife's made tons and tons of Halloween costumes. If you go back to my grandmother, they didn't buy their clothes, so.
Yeah, wow.
So I like it because it has a clutch. It has a clutch, you can put it in neutral, which I don't know if that one does, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, that one has a clutch, same,
I
same
can
spot.
put it in neutral and wind my bobbins with that.
Right,
So yeah, it's just if you want an older one, I don't know about the Paths, but the Singer is like this one is a 1591 and the 201s, those are kind of the really good, home heavy duty sewing machines.
Yeah, the 130 is basically the equivalent. It's a semi-industrial home sewing machine.
Oh, is it?
These
Singer?
things do require routine oiling.
They do, yeah.
And you have to watch the oil you use, because some of the oils will dry and leave a gummy residue,
That's
and that will jam them up.
yeah.
Sail right is the same, it requires a regular maintenance schedule, there's lots of places to oil it.
Yeah, just on this machine there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there are about 12 different oil ports just on the top.
just on
Yeah,
the
it's on top and then on the bottom.
And then in the bottom and the inside and then the back and yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's-
it's,
Does it use a flat side?
Mike's
needle?
used up and I just got.
What was the
Can you talk
question
about
here?
that?
Dan, what was your question, please?
Can you talk about the needle that it takes? Is it a flat side needle?
It's a flat side needle and it's like for this umbrella, I forget the number, 9?
Oh, someone is asking about the numbers you're saying about sewing machine.
It's this one is a 1591, Singer 1591. And then the only.
At the year?
No,
No.
yeah, the year's like 1938, 1940. They made them all the way up. They made them later into the 50s, but
You actually get hand crank ones too, people use them.
yeah.
Cruisers
Yeah,
use them.
my grandma had one.
So it's just a 110/18. So that's the size of the needle that it uses, and it's a flat-sided needle. And you basically, you've got to size the needle to the thread. So if you're using a heavier duty thread, you use a heavier duty needle. And then, I don't know about that machine, this machine, but every time you switch the thicknesses of the thread, you have to adjust the tension.
Oh, yeah.
And someone said that you could adjust the bobbin,
Well, I don't know about the Singers, the FAFs,
Yeah.
have a little tensioner on the bobbin that you adjust. You have to
Yeah.
balance the upper and lower tension.
Yeah, so I have to check that out. I've only been adjusting the top tension.
Yeah, well, I
Which is
think
cool,
with
so-
most lighter weight threads, that's all that's necessary.
So that's a good question. I mean, I tried to run 138, V136 or 8, which is a heavier duty thread in the Sailrite, and it did not work. Even though I had a biggest needle I could use, it just didn't work.
It didn't have enough power to push the needles?
No, it just kept kind of tearing it up. I mean, I
That
just,
could be a tension issue, because
well, they tell me in the Sailrite catalog, V92 is as far as you can go.
that's
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is what is the limiting factor? I don't know.
Yeah.
So what do you
This
use?
is V92 here.
Yeah, and
And
that's
it does-
typically what you've been using?
V92 for all the like.
What is that?
That's
That's the size of the thread, yeah.
64.
I
And
think
it's-
part of it is understanding how the sewing machine works, because it's got that hook that goes around.
Yeah,
So the thread takes the needle takes the thread down, and then when the needle comes back up, it leaves a hoop of thread underneath.
You can see it
And you've
actually.
got the rotating hook that picks up that thread and runs it around this gib hook. And that's what interlocks the stitch from the bobbin. And then the whole system has to pull it together tight like that. So if you have thick material or lots of material, when you're adjusting that tension, you're adjusting the size of that loop. So if the loop, if it's too much tension and it pulls the thread back up, then you're having a skip stitch.
yeah.
And if it's too much, then you get the little
mess in the
The
bottom.
mess.
mess in the bottom.
Yeah, that hook,
And
that
so-
hook across should be right in the middle of the fabric stack.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
In any case, that idea of adjusting the tension on the two, so if you see that you have a loop on the top of your stitch material, then your tension is either too tight at the top or too loose at the bottom. And if you turn it over and you see the stitch instead of it being buried, then it's exactly the opposite.
So have you been able to run V138 in your Sailrite?
I haven't tried to, because I use the
The Tenara.
92, but when I use the Tenara for the other stuff.
Yeah,
The
so
DTF.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Mark Dix online. So I have a Sailrite and I use 138 thread all the time and it works. You have to have a heavy enough needle. That really
Well-
helps.
What needle size are you using for the 138?
I think it's 22.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I was doing something wrong.
Yeah, I would say try it again. And I know that Sailrite says it can't work, but it does.
I wonder what-
One other comment that I had, what works pretty well for hand sewing, if you want to have NWMA thread that's like unidirectional thread, just take like a Amsteel blue, 1/8 inch or what is it, 7/64 or whatever size you want, and just pull one of the 8 or 12 strands out, and then you put that through your hand sewing needle, and you're sewing with NWMA thread. Goes real straight, doesn't tend to knot very much because it's not twisted, and it's very sunlight resistant, and it's super strong.
But doesn't it, it's so slippery, do you wax it, or, I mean, why wouldn't it just like come out, because it's so slippery?
Well, you have to knot it or, sew back on yourself or something to keep it from coming out. But depends how long, a run you're doing. If it's long, then you really only need to worry about the ends. But yeah, you can knot it at both
Mhm.
ends, or just sew back on itself to get enough friction.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like the idea of using the unidirectional threads, because the twist, trying to get those little knots out is a pain. It really slows you down. When you're sewing, hand sewing. So, I want to show, the audience here some of the, Jeff's handiwork.
don't look too close to the stitches. This was my first one.
The whole point of this is to look closely at the stitches. Okay, so you got this on the video here?
Okay, so I'm not an expert, so.
What is all
it's a
this,
pretty-
what are all
it's
these
a-
excuses? That's what
No, I'm just telling you, so, I mean, I love this and it worked great and I'm keeping it.
Getting close.
But it does represent the level of skill I have at the moment.
Okay, so what we see here, let me see, this doesn't look too bad, really.
No, there's some spots that are not bad.
Now,
Some spots-
what's going on here? We got a little bit of wobbly.
Yeah, so that's a good example of the bobbin tension not being right. So you can see that top thread's loose
Yeah,
and it's not pulling it down tight.
uh-huh,
So basically that little tight spot really should be pulling down
Yeah,
closer to get
yeah.
a stitch that's more uniform like this one.
yeah.
So that, you know, like that's a better stitch.
It's interesting, when you use the same color red as the material, that's genius.
I only work in
That's
black.
genius.
I only work in black. Yeah.
No, black.
Yeah.
You can't
You
tell
can't tell.
what's
Yeah,
going
right.
on. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, take advantage of everything you can.
That's really
How many
good.
layers of canvas will that sewing machine?
Let's see.
layers there probably, right?
No, well, let's see, depends on where it is, because this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8 layers right at the corner.
So did you-
Well, no, that's the pleat.
Oh,
Did
okay,
you have to
please.
push it through by hand or did you?
So, yeah, the motor's only good for so much, and so, if it gets stuck at low power, like you're going slow enough that it doesn't have a lot of momentum, you can just hand crank the wheel over.
Yeah.
The machine works just fine, just hand cranking. So, yeah, I did have to hand crank through some of the bigger ones,
Yeah.
so it works.
Okay, let's move over to the sailrite here. Now, hold on for a second. I wanna talk a little bit about the feed mechanism, because I don't fully understand what's going on here. But this is a standard feed mechanism where you basically put this bottom, can you see the bottom?
Gash.
feed thing?
Supposedly.
So there's a, hang on. So the bottom feed dog moves the fabric, right?
And the
So,
foot maintains the pressure.
and the foot just squashes it down. So if you have multiple layers, there's obviously a possibility of them sliding around on each other a little bit, right? Especially if you've got a slipperier fabric or more layers. So that seems to work really well, though. But I want to ask you, do you ever had problems with the feeds kind of like getting inconsistent stitch length because you're kind of pulling it through?
Not so much. I mean, it's more a matter of having the right foot tension or foot compression.
Oh, that's
For me.
adjustable.
So yeah, on mine, I can adjust the pressure on the foot.
I,
So if it's slip-
You can do that
if
with
it's-
the sailrite.
Yeah, if it's
No.
slipping, I just crank the pressure down
okay.
and that holds it against the dogs.
Have you ever have a needle strike?
I have had needle strike, but that's usually when I get it caught on something, like you feed through and it catches on the knob here. Something, then yeah, it pulls a needle and it misses the hole.
Yeah.
And breaks the needle.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's not
Every
bad.
every time.
Been there, done
Yeah,
Okay, so
this
we'll
one is
just-
not a walking foot.
So now we're gonna go to the walking foot machine. So,
How does that differ from?
we're gonna show, come on over here,
Pulls
Bill.
the fabric for you, which for the record, most sewing machines from like this century also pull the fabric forward for you. That's just a thing that they do.
Yeah,
So-
this
well,
one
you
pulls-
can-
this one pulls it through.
This one does pull it through, but
that
it's,
on the walking
well,
foot?
It's only, but it's only on the
But
bottom.
it's only on the bottom.
Yeah,
See how this
exactly.
moves?
Yeah.
Go down, up, like this.
I see.
Actually.
Yeah.
The dog.
So just-
Okay, so this one,
It's hypnotized.
okay, so
I'm gonna grab the computer.
I have a little-
Right, audio over here.
This is just the top and bottom.
right, so you have, you see this little doodad here?
Real light material.
That moves back and forth so that there is, pressure from the top and the bottom pulling it through. So
But it would,
I don't know if we can do it so right now,
Give us
but,
a live demo.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you could see this thing go, it goes so fast that it's hard to know.
Just crank
Well,
it
you
back
can do it by
in.
hand.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here we go.
Wow, this is like a whole video.
See this? See that thing coming forward now? And now it's gonna grab it and come back through. See that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your walking foot,
Hi, most sewing machines do not have that.
right?
Yeah, I don't think even
Not soft fur.
modern machines,
Yeah.
unless they're specified as having a walking foot,
Right,
have that.
yeah,
Never mind, I didn't realize this we were talking about, my bad.
Yeah.
okay. So there's a third type of feed mechanism for super heavy duty stuff where the top and bottom feet move and the needle goes and pulls back as well.
Wow.
So that's like the Sailrite fabricator machine, I believe, has that system. But that is, they don't have zigzag. So you can't do zigzag. So this machine, the benefit of this machine is it does have zigzag and straight stitch, which is pretty great. Because you do straight, you know, it's nice to have them all.
Vince, is that made by Sailrite?
No, they do not. There's
Yes,
a-
Diane, it was made by Sailrite.
Can I say
something?
Yeah,
Right, so
yeah.
I'm just here, you know,
Get him.
I'm working on it. All the most movement I've done all day. Okay, all right, that's the microphone, so anyways, what was your?
Go ahead.
So I bought a used Sailrite, and it was an older one. It was pretty banged up.
Hey, guys, don't talk while he's talking, because they get crosstalk and we can't hear anything.
It sailed around the world and it fell down a few times, but it was cheap. So I bought it for $150 and found out from Sailrite that you can buy any part in that machine, pretty much. So I got new front cover piece that was dented, and then you can buy the Lazy B, whatever it's called, motor that attaches to the back, and that replaced all the old electronics and everything. And it's a game changer. The thing will chug, chug, chug really slow, and it's controllable, have a separate speed knob. So a machine like that, I'd recommend getting the Lazy B or whatever, Easy B
What is it, Andrew?
motor that attaches to it.
Andrew has this as well.
Well, I don't have the Lazy B because that came out before I bought mine, but I bought the motor, which is actually mounted underneath the table.
That's
So
another option.
It
too.
provides exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean, I can just touch the pedal and I can make it, you know,
Yeah.
4 or 5 stops to get the needle just down and then 4 or 5 up.
So it's a stepper motor? Stepper motor?
Like a
Well, it
blast
just, the motor allows, you know, and used to be with my other motor, I would have to start it by hand if it was real thick. And that's not the case now. You can just move
It's
it
a
however you
different
want.
motor. It's a servo motor, what is a servo motor?
Yeah, like a
Do we have any
stepper,
electronic?
servo or
Is it a
stepper.
stepper motor? Dan,
Yeah,
what's a servo motor?
it's a servo motor.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dan, for that.
Which is also AKA stepper motor, right? Yeah,
Step motor.
yeah.
That's digital.
It's funny because we all have like different Sailrites. So I have 2 of these and they're set up entirely different. You have one kind of motor. I got a power wheel, a standard wheel. You have an oval model, and then you have the servo motor.
yeah.
So it's like.
It's called a
full
worker
gamut
bee. I
right
remember
here.
what it's called, worker bee, and you can retrofit any Sailrite. It just, you change a couple gears and you stick it on there and it's done.
Yeah.
Really easy.
But if you run that motor, you cannot have the power wheel. And the power wheel is like heavy duty, long, fast runs.
I believe you can put the power wheel.
It's a
on
different
it.
size
Yeah.
pulley system, so they don't.
I thought you could, but you don't really need it with the
You don't
worker
need
bee.
one. You don't need
Yeah.
it. So
With the
it's-
power bee, you can put yours in the case, right? And
Yeah.
carry it with you. Yeah,
Although the
that-
case is
and
long
like I
gone.
say, that didn't exist when I bought mine, but, and if you were buying a new one, that's what I would buy, but.
Yeah, they only
To get
come
that
that way
motor
now.
before, I had to get the one that was underneath the table, but that means it's not portable. I mean, I can easily take it apart, and put it back in the case, and I have the heavy motor and the crank and et cetera. You can do everything by hand.
Yeah.
But that's extra work to get it back that way.
Yeah, yeah. Andrew, would you show us some of your handiwork here?
Oh, yeah, see that.
Well, I made an enclosure for, you know, my hatch goes up.
And feel free to come and inspect this closely. And do we have any,
This is
Bright
that,
light.
this is also that thread that you were talking about.
oh, this is the Tanara. Oh, very interesting.
So this is just. This is the back window. I didn't bring the whole enclosure, but this is the enclosure. The back portion zips in and out.
Oh, check this out.
What are you checking out, Ben?
Yeah.
I know, it's perfect. I know.
Yeah.
See, he's a master.
Yep, sewing machine envy.
Check this out, man. The back stitching goes through the same hole.
Perfectly.
Wow.
Look at that.
And more importantly, it's three
Wow.
stitches every corner.
Oh, three
Exactly
stitches back.
three.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
So that's.
So this Tanara is, I thought it would be clear. but not.
It's, yeah, it's.
Yep, you have a sample of that thread?
I didn't bring in, no.
No. So what's advantages of UV?
Is this a resew or a new,
Yeah.
New.
But it's really expensive.
It is expensive. You can get 850 yard. I looked at it on my way here. Yeah, that's not like. It's $80 for 850 yards, so it's about 10 cents a yard.
And the other thread, it'll last a long time.
3 to
Yes,
5 years.
but you know, I worked on my dad's sail covers and et cetera. And as Vince said, you know, restitched them and et cetera, and it just depends. I mean, but if you're making a new project, I don't see any reason that you wouldn't. Besides, it's very nice. When you get your machine set up, it's very nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah, what else you got here?
I made all the cushions for the inside of my boat. So this is one that, you know, back in the quarter brick.
Now, did you use the Tanara too, or did
No.
you just use regular polyester? Okay. So this, I mean, that's fantastic.
Well, that's.
You know, I mean, there's no stitches visible.
No.
Well, the
Yeah,
zipper.
it's all inside.
Did you have to use molds or patterns? You make your own patterns?
Yeah, I made patterns and then, you know, you cut the foam, and it's all a matter of making sure that your final product is a little bit tighter so that it compresses the foam. Because my boat has, if I was to rebuild my boat, I'd add a little bit of extra headroom, because I can't sit, I mean, when I can sit on the settee and there's just that much room, but you put a cushion in there. And it's like, you know what I mean? So this is actually two different types of foam that are glued together. It's sort of soft and the air open cell on the top, and then on the bottom, there's a layer of closed cell.
Okay.
And I found that, you know, it actually caused issues in the construction because this foam bends differently than the other foam, you know, in terms of the compression at the corners. And I hadn't realized that when I started.
Yeah.
So
What
what
would
do you use
you
for-
recommend?
Well, I
Using-
mean, for my boat, this is what I needed to do. I mean, in the end, because now I can, this is, instead of being thicker,
Yeah.
you know, as they would suggest you do,
Well, perfect
and with
is good
need for
enough.
the open. I don't bottom out when I sit on it, and I don't hit my head, so I'm happy.
Well, you know, the other
But I
option,
wasn't build my boat with the higher.
the other option you should consider if you have this problem is just put in the 5mm Raptor deck, okay?
Yes, my wife would love it.
I have heard some people talk about if you're doing a area with cushions that you want to sleep on versus an area that you're just sitting on, two different foams, like apparently the ones that feel pretty good when you sit on them are a little harder, which are a little uncomfortable when you sleep on them. You're nodding your
that's
head.
The
so,
pressure difference.
Oh, yeah, outside, inside foam is totally different.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got run through instant dry foam.
yeah.
It's super wide
So
cell.
is that what?
And
those
then
are-
water
those
just
are
runs
outside
through it
cushions that you did?
and-
Or those inside?
Those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
outside.
But I'll say
in
that
the
there's an
cockpit.
element of that
And
in
I
sleeping
just
too,
use the
because by having the open
Oh.
cell,
Closed cell.
moisture is
Okay.
able to
Yeah,
move.
the closed
breathe.
cell.
And if you don't, and it's not breathing, it's uncomfortable to sleep on.
Yeah.
Memory foam will freeze, which really sucks.
Yeah, when it gets
It's real
cold,
cold.
it just indents and it stays there and.
Andrew, what do you use for patterning material?
I started with Sailrite has this plastic that's got the scrim on the inside of
Yeah.
it, you know, material so that it doesn't stretch. And that worked fine for the bottom, but you know, you can see this issue with our boats is the fact that you've got to pattern the bottom and you have to pattern the top.
Yeah,
So in the end, what I did on the top was to use some cardboard. And then I got them for work, so it wasn't anything to work, but I just put those on the edge, push it on, put a little piece of tape on it. And you go around and I
yeah.
just put down the proper width with the 2x4 or whatever roll it was.
I've been using Tyvek.
Type it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fantastic. It's super cheap. Roll of it.
Has the grid X's on it.
It's got grid X's. It's got everything just like the other stuff. You just roll it up in a tube and mark down what the pattern was in case you need to remake it later.
What is Cybex?
Yeah.
Tyvek's like house
House
wrap.
siding.
That white stuff they
Oh.
wrap houses.
The only difference is you can't see through it, so if you want, if there's something underneath it. The other thing I found is I would cut little diamonds in it, and when you lay it down, if you, doesn't matter what shape, obviously, but if you lay that down, then put a little piece of tape over it, it keeps it from moving, so if you have a large surface area, you can sort of tape it through the center.
Oh, like what, two-sided tape you're talking about?
No, just, I use packing tape.
Lastly, you got, one of these, boxes. here.
Yeah, this is just a bag, I have the way my galley works, this all just sort of, I have a series of bags that go behind the sink and the stove, et cetera. And, it was space that I wasn't using, and my brother said, you need to put your stuff up there, because we had it all underneath where it was difficult to access, or in the quarter bird, which is, and then when I have my stove deployed, it's not really accessible. So that all just sits behind, and that way, during the winter or when you're not cruising, I have that at home, and then you fill it, and take it back to the boat.
Nice.
Oh, with provisions or like.
Provisions in there, I have another one that's specifically for plates and knives, and et cetera. Yeah.
All the stuff you take off.
Can you, get a little close-up right here on this corner?
But one thing that we do, because of
Like the little deer back
being
there.
a small boat
Pull it
storing
away a little
things,
bit. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
it's like underneath the V berth,
Nice touch.
a place that we store things. Back in the quarter berth that
Very
we
good
can't
looking
access for a
fishes.
while, so we end up doing once a week provisioning. And that just goes in these, plus a bag that goes underneath the counter. And,
I have a question, Andrew. I see there's a kind of a bar tack here. This is something I've wondered about, to bar tack like webbing and stuff like that with a sailrite machine. Do you just go back and forth on a?
That's all I did, and the only reason I did that is I can't remember exactly. I mean, there is a little bit of, there's a little, it's a zip tie stay that's in there.
Oh, wow.
You know,
A zip
just-
tie stay?
Yeah, just to keep it side up. I mean, it has to be flexible enough to be able to get in there and
I
then,
see, I
et
see
cetera.
what you did.
And then I made some things that you can take things and out. But there was something in relationship to the construction where when this went on, I could only sew so far, and I put that in. It may have been the tie. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
but my question is more like, not why you did it in this particular thing, but how do you get enough stitches in like a bit of webbing where you want it to be really strong? The typical real bar tack is it's just like a super tight zigzag. Is that what you would do, or have you given that any
Well,
thought?
I mean, I think they usually do sort of a diagonal and then do the box frequently. I mean,
yeah.
that's what I've done.
Yeah, rectangular with a couple crosses.
Yeah.
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 You don't know a lot, not tie a lot.
I've heard
I'll just say a couple other things about things that I did. I put this on my soldering iron. I just made it out of, pounded it out of a copper wire.
Uh-huh.
And I use this as.
Oh, your hot knife.
For a hot knife. But, because I was being cheap, but if I was to do it again, since I've done all this, work. I would rather have just bought a dedicated hot knife because they have a lot more power to them and they're faster. This is slow.
Yeah.
But it works.
I have one that's
correct,
a
yeah.
rope cutter, and you can change out the blade for your hot knife, so you can, one thing does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this feels like steel.
I think it's copper.
I got
Yeah.
some kind of
Number
a hot
10,
knife,
number
and I
12.
was trying to use it for a long period of time, and it got really hot. I think it was about ready to melt on me, so I think a dedicated real hot knife would be a nice thing. Yeah, but then you have to have something to cut it on, a piece of glass or something. What do you,
wood.
what do you cut on?
I've used, just a large metal yardstick that goes, but that absorbs heat, which slows things down and et cetera.
Yeah.
So I sort of went to just doing cardboard and accepting the smoke. The other thing I'll just say, the other thing in terms of not using scissors stuff, this is so fast. As a
Oh,
rolling cutter and having a cutting surface that you do it on.
Wow.
In areas where you don't have to control the
yes,
edge.
yeah.
That's your favorite brand too, Vince.
Alpha.
Yeah. You know, where you can have an edge to it or, you know, et cetera, then.
What
That's
what
really
am I,
like a
what are we looking
Yeah,
at?
where you're not gonna have a raw edge that you have to worry about. I mean, this stuff will unravel if you don't cut it right on its
Oh,
own.
I see. This is a
So
sheet.
you're trying to cut it right on the warp?
Yeah, but it's impossible.
So does the cutter rotate faster than you pull it, or does it's just a pizza
Yeah,
cutter?
yeah.
And that actually
Pizza cutter.
works.
So fast.
It rolls.
It's just like butter.
Sharp as hell.
Right?
Super
Yeah,
sharp.
don't get your
Fingers,
fingers.
Yeah.
So you have
that
to have
blade
a
last
cutting
forever?
board of some sort.
Yeah, I have a self-healing cutting board and I'd get the biggest one you can.
Okay.
I mean, if you're gonna do a project like this.
Yeah. Huh.
And tell us about your edging, you're probably using the foldy attachment.
Yes,
Yeah.
Cell Right sells,
Those things are amazing.
matching, you know, like these are actually are that same material that you
The,
put on an
folding
edge,
thing.
but it's out.
It's not folded.
Yeah, and you can, if you feel in there, you can feel it's sort of, it's thin in the center and it gets wide towards the edge, but it comes pre-done that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you just
So
buy
does
the
it come
fabric
pre-folded?
or the strapping?
It doesn't come pre-folded in this direction, but the edge, so see that edge right there? I mean, I didn't have to do the folding. You can see they're exactly the same size.
Yeah,
So it's not an issue.
But the edge here, there's an attachment that bolts on here. that
Yes.
Folds it automatically.
Right.
Yeah, that works
exactly the
really
same.
well.
Yeah, I've had trouble with that, but it's only when you come to corners and stuff like that,
I've
it
had
just
nothing but
becomes,
luck with that.
yeah.
You gotta slow
I
down.
mean, straight edge, it works out okay, but yeah.
Huh,
I'd love to practice more with it, but that's just been my experience.
yeah.
I've
Do you
found it
sell your
easier to-
patterns? That's my question.
Well,
An empty shop or?
Of course, then the next question is, you know, how you hold these things when you're putting stuff together. And I use their seam tape from
Seam tape.
Sailrite and
Yeah.
the seam tape. They sell lots of different styles. They have one for canvas, they have one for lighter material, one for sail material, one for plastic, et cetera, et cetera. But the only thing I learned with that is that if you take that and then use it with lighter materials, it leaves a residue that doesn't get wiped off on the needle. And especially if you're using a threaded needle and not the PTFE type, you'll get a lot of thread breakage and stuff like that.
Oh, interesting.
Because when you use it with the canvas, it's thick enough that it actually self-cleans the needle as it's going up and down.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, you might be able to use 2 layers of it depending how you're putting things together, but more than that, it would cause trouble. So, I use a lot of these at times. I've used staplers, you know, you just staple things.
How about straight pins, or is that just too labor intensive?
I've used that occasionally, but, you know, I mean, all the things that I was doing are very long, so it just was easier to use other things.
Yeah.
Staplers are the things that I've used the most.
Yeah,
Straight
I mean,
stuff on.
it's pretty good. The other thing that I've got a lot of these things, you can actually buy them someplace at the University of Washington in the medical dental department. But I've collected them over the years, and it is amazing how, you know, for hand sewing, I use them. But you also, when you get to corners and you're trying to put things together, because they lock shut
Oh, yeah.
and open, you can get them grooved and ungrooved. When I pull the material out and I've got the loose threads, I just clip them like that. And that way, when you cut it and you put it back there all together, because you have to hold tension when you first start out. So
Yeah.
you don't have to
What
find
do you
it.
mean by
but-
grooved and ungrooved?
Well, this one has,
The
Teeth.
where they lock.
has
Oh,
teeth,
that-
has teeth on the surface or. it has
Oh,
smooth
yeah, or
surface.
just flat.
Huh.
Can I add something you can seam
Oh, yeah.
stick there?
Mhm.
So the seam stick, I use a lot of seam stick and staples, obviously, but seam stick, I have a needle or 2 that I'm working with, and then I just put a little cup of isopropyl alcohol. And every time I change the bobbin, I change the needle and throw the old one in the alcohol, which eats off all the seam stick kind of residue. Because if it sits on there for basically, I found that more than a bobbin's worth has a tendency to like
Wow.
split the thread.
Yeah, and the other thing I've done when I'm desperate.
But it's not
is-
dead yet.
Is just use some, you know, goo off or whatever in the world they called it.
Goof off,
Either
sure.
that,
That would-
goof off, that type of thing.
that
And
would
you
be
got
fine.
ventilation issues, obviously, et cetera. But I just have a piece of paper towel and wipe the needle with the thread in there and it takes care of it for a period. The Sailrite needle, you know, has that groove in it.
Yeah.
So you've got to
yeah.
put the thread on a certain side and it goes through. And that groove allows it to punch through something that's heavy. but, get the right tension for that when it pulls it out and leaves the loop. And if you get a little bit of adhesive in there, it just fouls it up.
Yeah. So the, yeah, this is fascinating. I've always wanted to see one of these and I never got to actually see.
Yeah,
it.
the self-healing cutting mat is just amazing, because you just put it out and you, I mean, you run your hand over it and you really can't tell what you just did. It's just, it
It's
takes care of
crazy.
itself. Yeah.
Huh, fascinating. Do we have any other projects in attendance? I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to show them after this, but yeah, do you,
I didn't think to bring up a sample, but I like to stay hydrated and keep my water bottle out on the net laced to the
yeah,
anyway, you know, a lot of lids are held together with plastic. Sean, so straps, where's the camera? Straps, oh, it's over there, on my water bottles. They make a great handle to them.
oh, nice.
Yeah. Here, let me do this and then I.
Yeah, it'll be, hopefully everyone can kind of see it through the glare.
Because I see it up there.
Oh, yeah. That works. That's really cute. I would.
Is it Velcro or just strapping
It's just straps. Yeah, he fits them
onto the?
made to order.
And then how does it connect? to the-
Just
Oh, it's
latch
just
them on,
slipped in, yeah.
and you just latch them to the net.
Oh, you latch it to the net.
Oh, yeah, I carry it with me and then I just use a carabiner.
Oh,
But
okay.
I've had a lot of experience with, flat and trying to carabiner into the plastic and it breaking. Well, that's what I used to do before Sean.
Well, that's fantastic. Does anybody have any further, I mean, we're 8:30, we got
I have
time,
an all-time thread, recommendation for still rates. And that is- So what I was talking about, pull this off real quick for you guys, but
Yeah.
down in here, there's the little B.
Yeah.
Which controls the upper tension. And the problem on a sail ride is that this is almost a straight angle up and down. And what you want to create to keep it inside that V is a tortuous path, which means to bring this closer this way.
Oh, so you
Which
get
will
more
keep
wrap.
it in there, yeah. So you can just take a bobbin. And just seam stick it here, that creates a little bit more of
A little bit
an
more wrap.
angle.
Yeah.
So you have
So
more
you can
tension?
use-
Even
It's
with
more
this,
tension. it
even with
keeps
this,
it-
you need
More surface area where it's gonna
It
be held.
keeps it more tortuous around into the V here.
Oh, it keeps it further in the V.
Because otherwise it has a tendency to lock itself out because it's so slippery.
And come out of the V completely?
So I actually just like mounted a peg here on my machine, but you can just, I
Yeah.
don't know, butyl tape this here, seam stick it, whatever,
Yeah.
onto there.
Huh.
It should just be fine. But
Yeah.
that's a big difference between
Okay.
running like a V64, V92 and Tamara.
So, and the Tenera is stronger than other threads, right? So you
It's
would,
equivalent to probably your V92. It's just gonna
Okay.
be more UV resistant
okay,
in all
Got it.
ways.
right. Yeah, I think
That's
this
the big
worker
difference.
deal is the way to go for me. I thought about getting a bigger machine, but I need to just learn how to use this one really well.
Yeah, get the worker bee,
It
such a
sounds
difference.
so, yeah, I looked at the videos on.
Yeah.
I think
That expensive now, it was pretty easy to put on.
Yeah, cool.
So I got a question about
Yeah.
sewing machines in general. So we just bought Sailrite heavy duty. Thinking you could do some light sail work and not a canvas work. Is the Sailrite that much better?
You said you bought a sail right?
No, sorry, Singer heavy duty.
Uh-huh.
We just bought a
Yeah.
standard Singer.
Sewing machine.
Yeah.
I think you'll probably be very happy because you can do lighter weight materials. I mean, I struggle with very lightweight materials on my sail ride.
Yeah.
That walking foot and et cetera, they'll tell you some, workarounds that might make it happen, but you'll be able to do that easily with your machine, and most likely you'll be able to do the canvas work that you want to do as well.
So we've done only one thing.
Yeah.
Our sail cover were falling apart, so we just stitches, or just straightforward, so that doesn't fall off any long, any farther. That's the only project.
It seemed to
we've
work
done.
well, yeah.
Yeah, it does. It has worked well, and yeah, we came here to learn more.
one of the benefits of the sail rate back in the day was that they had the patent on the upper and lower walking foot. And that has expired. So
Oh.
it's now in the open domain. So other companies are now starting to do walking foots and they're actually better at doing lighter weight materials.
Probably lighter sewing machines. These things are so heavy.
Yeah, they're super heavy.
Yeah.
Well,
I use about a 1985, I don't know how to pronounce it, Nichi, Nicci or something like that, Japanese brand, just a standard sewing machine. And I can get through about 4 layers of strap.
Huh.
It's work.
Yeah.
It'll do it. So if you need more than that, then okay, maybe a sail rate, but if you're not doing more than 4 or 5 layers of canvas, light canvasy, or 3 layers of light canvas, sure, a sail rate's worth it.
Mm.
You can just use any home sewing machine probably and be
Yeah.
reasonably okay. You might use a few more needles, might need to work on the tension a little bit more, but I've been able to do everything I wanted to do with a standard sewing machine.
I think you hear about sail rights a lot because there's, a big community that carries a sail right with them when they're cruising. And that's because you can sew without, they have the larger crank that's heavy with a handle on it, et cetera. You can do all this sewing here by hand without electricity. And it's all mechanical. There's no electronics to it. You're gonna just sort of, spray the whole thing with the spray wax or whatever and put it away in your hold and it'll be there when you need it. I think that's sort of where their niche started.
Well,
So
if you-
having one like this that's in the case to, sew at home is maybe,
Not
more niche than
Yeah.
everybody needs, I guess is
Right.
what I'm saying.
The nice thing about Sailrite is they have a tremendous amount of information on their website.
Oh, it is outrageous.
And you probably get parts for it anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But if you're doing all this stuff at home and you've already got a sewing machine,
Yeah, go for it.
see how that works, and if it's not doing it, then maybe look at,
And some of these old iron, old black iron ones are designed to just about be industrial.
well, the
Yeah.
fabrics were a lot thicker and, people were
I
selling
know the
denim
fat
and
was
stuff.
just still so different when you think about
Yeah, yeah.
it started.
We haven't come across any problems getting like really long, like sails in that little gap.
This distance here, yeah.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
That seems really hard to me.
Bunch it up.
But yeah, I mean, a full-size machine with a 12-inch reach would make that easier. Mine is 9 inches, I think, and so it's tight. Yeah.
I was on a boat where the mainsail got a rip in it and we pulled it through the hatch. The sewing machine was down there on the settee but it was only about this far from the edge. And just a tight rope because it was the luff, but it
Yeah.
would do a repair by hand at anchor.
Nice.
Without using glue.
No.
The throw is a deal though. It's almost like bandsaws, right? Like you have to get the 14-inch or you get the 16 or the 18.
Oh, you go the biggest.
As big as you can get, right? But I mean, like rolling it up, that's one trick to get it in through there. I mean, I remember my grandmother doing like kids' clothes with cuffs. Which you have to like basically turn it inside out and kind of run it around as a cup, So I mean, there are different tricks to do it.
I got a Fab 360 for $7 at Salvation Army that was frozen. And it's a free arm machine, so it has a stand that drops and just has an arm if you need something to get around.
Oh,
okay, yeah,
nice.
see, yeah, that's cool.
That is really
But it
cool.
was like frozen and I unfroze it.
Yeah,
Nice.
frozen, when they say frozen on these, I mean, it's like just not that hard to get it on.
It's just gummy.
Like,
It's just
yeah,
generally, by
Yeah.
and large, it's just
Clean
gummed
it.
up.
maybe a little scuff it down a little bit, the wearing surfaces and.
Yeah, I just,
I do notice, like, if this thing's been away for a year and then you turn it, here, you can tell if the oil's good or not, because it's, it should just bear,
should free.
super
Real
free,
free.
yeah. If it sticks a little bit, you gotta re-oil.
And you have to watch the oil. You
use
just have to use
sailor
non-chemical oil.
oil.
Hasn't been done since I got it.
Really?
Better do.
The newer machines, some of them have non-lubricated bearings.
Yeah, I love this one because it has, you know, it's packed in there, these little holes. Underneath the hole, there's like a cup with felt in it. And so you, yeah, you basically, and that felt wipes the little surface that you're keeping, you know, to keep it full of oil. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Engineering is impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the machining on these things is what we found.
All right, guys, I think we have far from exhausted the topic of sewing, only just scratched the surface. But I know I've learned a lot and I've been incredibly impressed as usual with Andrew's work. But it, you know, it sets a standard that we can sort of aspire to, so that's good. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you for voting to raise the dues. And that's it for tonight.
And I might need a lift back to Ballard depending on how flat my tire is.
I can provide that.
How far into Ballard? 58th and 30th. He's going right by it.
Yeah. Oh, do take a look at these two books. They are great.
All right, guys, I'm going to sign off the Zoom. Have a good night.